This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. It is my great pleasure to be joined this morning, yes, we're still this morning, by Maggie Fox, CEO and founder of Ciselier. Now, for those people unfamiliar with your company, which is still in its nascent months, its first year, would you mind explaining a little bit about what Ciselier is? Because I think I have found my new obsession.
Thank you so much, Jamie. So Ciselier is a company that was founded to support and encourage the making of scissors in the traditional way and supporting the makers who do that work, and then educate people and let them know that these beautiful, beautiful tools exist. And if you're quality minded, it's something you might enjoy. It might change your life. In fact, a beautiful handmade pair of scissors.
Now, the first question that comes to mind is what on earth inspired you to do this? I mean, previous to your adventures in the world of artisanal scissors, did you also have a pair of scissors similar to this in your kitchen?
You know what? Who does not? In fact, I have a photograph of all of them,
Oh,
and they're
right.
all terrible.
Right.
Garbage,
Okay.
as we like to say in French. Garbage.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, what was it that inspired you to enter into the world of such beauties as this?
Or as this.
There we go.
Yes. So it's like this. I worked in e-commerce, so I'm a technology software marketer.
Right. Okay.
Always worked in digital for 20 years, like really from the beginning, the early days of the internet. Most recently, I was in the e-commerce space, so kind of got to get a sense of how easy to use things like Shopify are and how transformational they could be. So I was very curious about that. A few years ago, my husband and I were traveling in Portugal. I was working for a software company that shall not be named, that I was maybe not enjoying so much as the chief marketing officer. And I said to him, we need to come up with a business that allows us to travel to great places and meet interesting people. And we walked by a storefront that literally was filled with beautiful golden stork scissors, just stunning. And was lit up. It lit up like a jewelry store. And I said, what about scissors? Where do you buy really good quality scissors? Ha ha ha, sort of let that lie for a couple of years. And then when I went back onto the board of the e-commerce company I was running, I started to look around for something to do, and I explored a few ideas, and the scissors thing came back. And I thought, where do you buy really good quality scissors? I find it hard to believe that that's not a consumer category. I mean, we love beautiful knives, we have beautiful pots, we have all sorts of things. And so I started searching, and I realized it's not a category. It's not a thing. There are people making these high quality scissors, but it's really, really hard to find them. So it was a light bulb moment. And I thought, I'm going to dig into this and see what I can find.
Now, are there such things as scissor making conferences and the like, or are they a kind of side, an adjunct to perhaps a knife conference or something like that? How do you find all of these artisanal knife producers? And is artisanal scissor production a dying craft?
Very much.
Right.
So there is a category of technical scissors, which we are probably all familiar with. It can be everything from hairdressing to scissors to cut Teflon. And there are literally cutting conferences, like blade making conferences, and all of that stuff happens there. Okay. It's industrial, right? So that's a thing. And yes, it's known. What we specialize in are household scissors, scissors that you and I might use every day in the kitchen or elsewhere. And what we found were there were all these little makers in regions that historically actually typically made swords. And we're talking in Europe, hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Beautiful historic businesses. So they made swords. When swords were no longer used, they turned to household blades, and scissors are quite old. So in most cases, they made knives and scissors. And at one time, when people sewed their own clothing and lives were different, there are many, many hundreds of these makers. Now there are probably no more than a dozen handmade scissor companies making scissors in the traditional way, at the quality that we are interested in, left globally, period, full stop. And they are under a huge amount of pressure from the kinds of scissors that you just showed us, which are the garbage, $2, cold stamped, don't take an edge, throw them away when you dull them. And because that's what most of us are used to. But there are these companies making art. I mean, it's just the quality of these products is exceptional.
Now, please excuse my ignorance here, but what does distinguish an artisanally made pair of scissors to one that is much more industrially manufactured?
So the ones you held up are typically stamped out of a large sheet of actually quite soft steel. Oh, not those ones, the other ones, the nasty,
the nasty ones.
nasty ones.
Okay. You can put them side by side for a comparison.
That's right. Yeah. So the upper scissors there would be stamped out of a sheet of metal, very soft. Don't take an edge, don't keep an edge.
Right.
And the handles are also a dead giveaway, because that is the most difficult part of scissor making, is to, one of the most time intensive rather parts of scissor making is to smooth the handles so that they are comfortable,
right,
and nicely in the hand for long periods of time. That is probably what takes the most time, not the most skill, but the most time. So you will see companies with rubber handles to shortcut that effort and that time, which we will not touch. We will not.
You even see those rubber handles in some of the kind of branded, more expensive pairs of household scissors, right?
The cost saving. It's a cost saving shortcut. Yep. And I will also tell you that, especially in Italy, our makers, like this is a maker called Fennec, which is actually not very well known, but they've been making scissors since 1895. Many makers, especially in Italy, actually many of our makers make the scissors for the big brands that you would see. And they're often to a lower standard of quality because they just want mass production and they want to cut corners. So, so you're actually still getting scissors made by these, at a higher price point, but by these wonderful artisans. So poor quality scissors are stamped. These scissors, like the ones you showed, are like a knife. So they are hot forged, they are oil hardened, they are carbon steel or stainless steel, and they are made in the same way that the best quality knife is made in terms of blade hardness and sharpening. Then, actually, another layer of complexity is what they call the marrying of the blades. Okay. So Pallarès, which this is the maker, and you have two pairs there yourself. So Pallarès, David Pallarès, the owner of this company, which has been in his family since 1917, told us that everyone in his shop can make knives. Everyone. So relatively straightforward. Only two people can make scissors, because you are essentially making two knives, right? And then you are marrying them together so that they cut. So I don't know if you're able, you probably won't be able to see this necessarily, but maybe at home you can do it. If you open and close the scissors, you will watch the cutting surface move along the blades as they come together. Yep. And that can only be done by hand and is incredibly highly skilled work. Everywhere we went, the average was about 5 years of apprenticeship to learn how to bend each half of the scissors and marry them together so that they have this beautiful and perfect cutting surface. And that's where the pressure is, because people are buying garbage that costs $3, and finding people who are willing to learn how to do this work, because it's not a known thing, right? People are not aware that there is this category of beautiful scissors, or the difference. Because if you've never handled a good quality pair, what do you know between what you're spending $2 on? And oh no, these are an absolute dream to work with. I was looking around the kitchen for more things to cut, just so I could get the experience of feeling these two blades come together. It really is quite something. Now, when it comes to the maintenance of something like these, what kind of tips would you give me? I can be quite lazy and not dry things properly, but these do need dried as soon as you've used them, right? There is no metal that will not oxidize. Even if it's stainless steel, it still will be discolored. If it's nickel plated, which kitchen scissors tend not to be plated because the plating can deteriorate. So most of our scissors are stainless steel hand polished. So there is no finish on them. There's just the natural stainless finish because of the composition of the steel. And so what we recommend, if you want to watch out for oxidization, is absolutely always wipe them off and don't ever put them away wet. Right. Where you'll notice that in particular is in the hinge, because moisture can sit in the hinge. So really just give them a good wipe down in and around and make sure they're well dried. We do have, and you see this often in Italian style scissors, they're detachable, so the blades will come apart. That's obviously a little easier to clean in the hinge, but if you essentially just keep them dry, treat them as you would treat your best knife, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And then a lot of good quality scissors have bolts because they're tightened to work, so the two halves work together, sort of because their two halves are made for each other, and so they have to be fitted perfectly. The bolts can become loose, especially if they're hard working. So just recommend you tighten them every 3 months or so, maybe a drop of mineral oil to reduce friction. Yeah, which is food safe. And that's it. That's it, essentially. And just treat them like you would treat your best knife.
Now, as for sharpening, how does one do that?